Hi everybody, my name is Kamal. I'm with Office Logic Shop. I want to tell you guys a way to avoid being scammed with a really common scam that's out there in the market. People are trying to sell Mirra 1s as Mirra 2s. There's a considerable price difference between the two. There's also a considerable amount of differences in terms of the functions and the way that they work. So we want to show you 3 quick ways here at Office Logic Shop to avoid being scammed. Sometimes actually they might be an innocent mistake, but we're going to show you some of the listings here that are being falsely promoted as Mirra 2s when they're in fact actually a Mirra 1, the older version of the Mirra. I'm going to show you the first and most common easy way to identify a Mirra 1. First, I want you to look at the Mirra 1 spine. The spine is attached to the backrest here through 2 bolts up at the top. Secondly, after that, there's under the backrest spine cover, you will see 2 bolts that attach the spine to the seat base here, compared to the Mirra 2, because if you look at the Mirra 2, the spine is not attached by bolts to the backrest. It's actually one piece, and the spine goes into the chair, and there's a complex process that we'll actually make another video about separating and renewing your back on the Mirra 2. So that's the quickest and easiest way to look at the backs of the Mirra 1 versus the Mirra 2. The Mirra 2 has this circular or oval type frame that encapsulates the entire top of the chair and then goes into the Y, whereas here there's the 2 prongs with the bolts. They don't go all the way around the top edge of the frame, as you notice here. Secondly, another quick way is you can look at the attachments of the seat to the hip bolts area of the chairs. Here you'll notice on the Mirra 1, there are Torx, they're actually probably T40 bolts that go into the arms on the hips. On the Mirra 2, actually the bolts here are encapsulated on the inside, and there is actually a plastic mechanism also, which we'll make another video on about how to replace the Mirra 2 seat. But you'll notice that there's a rubberized coating on the frame that covers the attachment points to the arms at the hips. And then third, and most quickly and easily, is by looking at the mechanism. The mechanism on the Mirra 1 is significantly larger and bulkier than the Mirra 2, which is considerably thinner. If you look at a side profile, you'll see that the side profile of the Mirra 2 here actually has about a 2-inch to 2.5-inch length across from top to bottom. But if you look at the Mirra 1, there's approximately 3 to 4 inches, depending on which part of the mechanism that you're looking at. So if you look at those things very quickly, those are the fastest ways that you can notice the difference between the Mirra 1 and the Mirra 2. Those are the easiest ones. Now, there are a couple other small ways that you can notice the difference, and I'll show you them right now, but those are the 3 primary ones. So just to re-encapsulate, the first 3 are the back spines. Notice the difference between Mirra 2 and Mirra 1. The bolts that are attaching the Mirra 1 spine to the backrest, and then the lack thereof in the Mirra 2. The hip bolts on the Mirra 1, and the lack thereof on the Mirra 2 with a rubberized edge. Lastly, the mechanism sizes. Now, there are 2 more small and more finite ways that you can tell the difference between a Mirra 1 and Mirra 2. I'll show you those, but those aren't necessarily there or needed if you can use the first 3 ways to identify them. But I'll show them to you anyways as a bonus. The mechanism for the Mirra 1 to have the flex front adjusted is significantly bulkier. If you look at the bottom, you'll notice a much larger, bulkier lever. Whereas in the Mirra 2, there's a lighter mechanism that adjusts the flex front. But if you don't have them comparison side by side, or you haven't experienced them, you might not be able to use that to identify it much easily. We can also see that there's no foam on the front edge of the lip of the Mirra 2, sorry. And if you push down, you will not feel that. If you push down on the Mirra 1, you'll notice there is a foam that pushes back against your fingers or your hands. The last way that you can maybe use, it's gonna not be as easy as the first three that I mentioned as well, is by looking at the arms. The mechanism for the arms on the Mirra 1 is a little bit different. There's a flip lever here. It looks a little bit different than the mechanism on the Mirra 2. This lever is there, but if you want to make it a little bit easier, you can see that there's a ribbed pattern along the railing of the Mirra 2 arms, and it actually makes a clicking sound as well. But again, if you haven't had the experience of the Mirra 1 versus Mirra 2, you might not know to look for it or be able to compare it easily. Notice here you don't see the ribbed pattern along the railing. And that's it actually, guys. So just be careful. There is a considerable price difference between the two, whether it is used or new. And a lot of people try to confuse the two, either intentionally or unintentionally, by looking at the back mesh. Be careful. Whenever you see a Mirra chair that has back mesh on it, or they call it latitude mesh, that does not necessarily mean that it's a Mirra 2. There's a lot of people that try to pass off this chair just simply because it has a latitude mesh as a Mirra 2 here. There is a difference. So just because it has a black mesh, again, does not mean that it's a Mirra 1 or a Mirra 2. You need to compare the other essential features that I showed you, the top three that I mentioned, and then you can look at the other two secondary features, such as the flex front mechanism and then also the arm railings. And that's it. Thanks a lot, guys.